Hi there, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. Today I want to talk about Relics of Ruin, an arc I received from Orbit, and it's the sequel to one of the more oddball series debuts I read last year, Empire of Exiles by Erin Evans. When I requested this arc, I was expecting at best a decent way to pass a couple hours because that's pretty much my impression of the first novel. It's not mind blowing, but it's like I've read a lot worse fantasy out there. And Erin Evans has tons of experience writing Forgotten Realms novels, so she is a very technically proficient writer. But what I found myself immersed in actually with Relics of Ruin was a surprisingly compelling mystery from start to finish. So, to summarize the events that take place in this book, 23 years ago, beyond the Salt Wall, our failed mastermind, Rodolfo Kirazi, sets out on a journey with an unknown destination in mind for an unknown purpose. And along the way, he starts to amass this following. And it's clear from what little we see of events that occur over the course of his journey that something's brewing. Something is definitely brewing. And then in modern time, in present time, the discovery of the relics of a saint that were supposed to be protected by the archives being tampered with by unknown parties at an unknown point in time trigger a series of events that have pretty explosive consequences, both for our ensemble cast and for the Empire as a whole, as it steamrolls into a series of events that threaten the very stability of the Empire. So, what are my thoughts on this novel? First things first, if you ever see our main character of the ensemble, Quill, I would suggest you run screaming in as loudly as you can in the opposite direction, because it seems everywhere this guy goes, somebody gets murdered, and it's never just like a pedestrian murder for like a petty reason like money or love or something like that. It's always like the tip of the iceberg of this grand conspiracy. So he's a guy best avoided. At this point, people getting killed near him seems to be like his most defining character trait, I would say, given the events of the first book and now this one. But it does kind of that does kind of lead me into the most fascinating part of this book. First and foremost, this book is very character driven and it's very mystery driven. That's the two foundational pillars of it. Unfortunately, the characters, they don't quite do it for me, with the exception of Amadea. Amadea is by far the most interesting character in this novel. Half the time you can't tell if her memories are legit or not. As to why, read and find out. But yeah, aside from the characters, by far the most interesting thing of this novel for me was the mystery. Like I said, when I picked this up, I was just expecting an okay read to pass a couple hours. What I got instead was this really fascinating mystery that it just doesn't relent from start to finish. We just, right from the get go, we have this murder happen, practically like this was a Dan Brown novel, and then things just escalate from there, and just keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. What I like about how the mystery is handled is our assumptions and perception of events, they're tainted by the emotions and the assumptions of our characters. So this allows Erin Evans to just bash us over the head with red herring after red herring, to the point where you're so concussed you really don't know your left hand from orange. How often she just pulls the rug out from under you with these red herrings. It really keeps things interesting. It keeps them going, and because I wasn't like captivated by the characters, it did like it was the factor that just had me hooked on this novel and kept me going from start to finish. The characters, they're by no means like I've read worse developed characters. I've read worse defined ones, but and they're by no means that. It's just that emotionally I couldn't care much about them. I can see why people would love them because like Amadea is amazing. She's the head archivist, and she just has this really fascinating backstory with a particular element to said backstory that it makes you question everything about her. Every time she has these flashbacks, the world building in these novels, I personally have always felt that the world building it kind of needs to like it needs to kind of amaze you. It needs to be spectacular to some extent. And because of the fact that this novel is very character driven, it's very mystery driven, world building takes a heavy backstage. So things are things are shown to you here and there, little elements. There's nothing, and there's some fascinating stuff that does exist in this world, but for the most part, it just didn't grip me. But I can see why it would compel some readers also. Like there's some, on one hand, like a lot of the elements I couldn't care for. On the other hand, there's some really crazy stuff going on in this world. It's an interesting imagination to say the least. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I can really say about this novel. I was surprised by how much more compelling, how much more confident of a sequel it was. I really wasn't like, I wasn't expecting to be like blown away or anything, and I wasn't. But I wasn't expecting to enjoy myself with this as much as I did either. Because I did enjoy myself with it. Like it's a really good mystery. From start to finish, it's a really good mystery. With enough twists and turns that you don't see the ending coming. You can't, because of the way that things are just presented to us, the manner in which they're handled, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Relics of Ruin. Like it's a surprisingly good sequel to an average read from last year, and hopefully the trend continues. And I now have high expectations for the sequel, the third book in the series, which hopefully is coming out next year. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Relics of Ruin. If you've read this, if you're interested in it, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching.